Well, hello and welcome to my YouTube channel. So unfortunately this week I haven't been able to get out. I've got the dreaded COVID. So what I tried to do, I thought about doing macro photography and just wander around the garden because I'm isolated anyway. The problem is the garden's not mature enough and there's hardly any flowers, so the macro photography is out the window. But what I thought I would do is some creative photography. So what I'll do is I've been dabbling with what we call twirl photography recently. So why don't I do a small tutorial and share with you how I go about twirl photography, what I do in Lightroom and how we create it. And you never know, you might like it. So keep watching and let's see where we get this. What we have here, I'm just using an image that I took a few months ago back at St Cyrus Beach. And it's just to show you that you can use any image and then the effects that you get from it. So the first thing we do, we're in Photoshop. So we double click the layer, so we take the protection off it. So we do a double click and then we select Convert to Smart Object. Now what we want to do is go into Filter, Pixelate, Mezzotint, and when you're in Mezzotint, what you want to do is you want to select medium strokes. So we select medium strokes, we make sure that's selected, select OK, and that's the effect that you get. So in the next step, what we've got to do is go back into Filter, select Blur, go to Radial Blur, and in Radial Blur, select Zoom, and I just select Good. And then what you want to do is slide the amount bar up to 100% and select OK. So what you might have to do is do this a couple of times because what you want to do is get a smooth effect. So if you go back up to Filter, select Radial Blur again, press OK, and do you know, you look at these images and you go, that would be quite a nice image in its own right, on which it would be, it'd be a nice backdrop. But we can go back into Filter, Radial Blur again, and it just gives it a little bit more definition. So in order to start the twirl effect, what we do is we go into Filter, Distort, and then select Twirl. So in here, I usually use settings of 150 from an angle point of view, but you can use a range between 100 plus. It's really up to you. If I was you, I would experiment with the ranges that best suits what you like to see. So for a moment and for the purposes of the demonstration, I'll select to -50. And the reason I'm selecting -50, it goes the opposite way. Now the key thing here is you go over, you double click on Twirl layer, you select Lighten as the blending mode, and then that just brings up the highlights within the image. Now what we want to do is, we've done the negative effect, we now want to do the positive effect. So if we go back to Filter, and we go to Distort, and we select Twirl, now what we want to do is plus 150. And then again, double click, select the blend mode, and change that to Lighten. And there you have an image that's quite bright. So if we go up to the adjustment layer and we select the curves, what we can then do is just add in some depth into the image. So if we slide the blacks down a bit, again we can lift the highlights a bit and then start to pull down the shadows until we've got an image that we're happy with as a baseline. So if I go back into adjustments, select vibrance, just up the colours a bit, say by 15, and that's me finished doing that initial edit. So I've got all these layers here, so all I need to do is go into Layer and select Flatten Image. And then what that does, it gives me a single image that I can now edit in Lightroom. So if I go to Filter and select Camera Raw Filter, in Camera Raw Filter I select the Basic tab. Now what I tend to do is use the dehaze slider and try and get as much contrast in as we possibly can. Increase the clarity because that gives you sharpness and depth to the lines. And if you want, you can tweak the texture. So if I go extreme, if you take texture to the far left, it softens the image. If you take texture to the far right, it really sharpens it. So I'll go somewhere in between because it's quite nice if it's sharp. Now what we can do is play with the highlights. So we can reduce the highlights or we can increase the highlights. So reduce the highlights down to where visually you like the look of the image. You can up the whites to give it a little bit of a glow. Again, you can increase the blacks if you want, and again that gives you more depth. You can look at the contrast, so if I increase the contrast, kind of looks a bit burned out. And then if I go way left, it's kind of soft. So again, if you're looking for a soft pastel effect, if you bring the contrast right down to -100, it'll give you that. So if I just slowly bring it back up to where visually I think it's quite a nice image. And then what I can then do is go in to the colour mixer and then look at the HSL sliders. So HSL is hue, saturation and luminance. So what I want to do is select saturation, and I might just say, well, some of those blues are a bit blue. So what I can do is slide that down and remove the blues and make them black and white, or I can increase the blues. So again, I'm just going to tone down the blues a touch. The yellows are strong, so I'll tone the yellows down. Let's increase the oranges and let's increase the reds. And then again, you can play about with the magentas. All you need to do is just slide the sliders left or right to see the difference it makes. And if you get an enhancement somewhere, then keep it. There's nothing wrong with it. It's your image at the end of the day. So again, do I want to increase the magenta or do I want to reduce it? I think I'll leave the magenta somewhere about -12. And again, there's no right or wrong way here. It's all personal taste, it's all personal choice, and it's up to you. If I then select effects, I can then add a vignette. So if I slide the vignette slide to the right, I get a white vignette. If I slide it to the left, I get a dark vignette. So when it comes to vignettes, even in photographs, there is a kind of unwritten rule of thumb that you can slide your vignette to up to -14, and it doesn't interfere too much with the photograph, but it gives it that depth in the surrounding areas. So all I need to do here is select OK, and then we have a finished image. So if I do File, Export as a JPEG, save the JPEG, I'll make it Twirl C, and then that's that saved. So if I do don't save, then that saves my original image. So what I can do now is I'll pick another image just so you can see the effect that it has. So if I select an image that I took of the 4th Queensferry Bridge and apply the same process, so very quickly take off the protection and the lock, convert to smart object. I'm going into File, I'm going to stylize, no I'm not, I'm going to pixelate, mesotint, select OK. Then I want to do the radial blur, so I'll go File, Blur, Radial Blur. It's already set to 100, zoom and good. And then I want to do that a couple of more times, Radial Blur, OK, and then one more time, Radial Blur, OK, and that gives me a nice smooth effect. Now what I want to do is start a twirl. So if I go Filter and Distort Twirl, and then what I'll do this time, I'll make it -130, just so that you can see the difference that it makes from the 150. Double click on the layer, change the blending mode to lighten, and that's quite nice. Now go back into Filter, go back into Distort, Twirl, and I want to do a plus 130. And again, double click, enhance the blending mode to lighten, select OK. So again, go back into adjustments, go into the curves, and again, you can use whatever options you want. Just sometimes these are quite helpful to help enhance and brighten the image at times. So I can pull that down or increase it. That's quite nice, that's quite bright. Go back to adjustments, look at vibrance, just tweak the vibrance a bit. Select the layer, go into layer, flatten image. And there I'm back to having my single image again. So now go back into filter, camera raw, and then select basic, tweak dehaze, not too much because the colours are quite strong here anyway. Select clarity, increase the clarity. If I go to texture, that helps exaggerate the twirl lines. And actually, do you know, I don't really need to make a lot of adjustments because I'm really pleased with that image and the way it's turned out. And again, it's all about experimenting, just try it. So if I select OK, because I like the image as it is, and then do File, Export as a JPEG, again I'll call that Twirl D, and there we have the final image. So again, it's all about you, your experimentation, what you like, what you don't like. You can rotate that image by 90 degrees, you can rotate that image by 180 degrees, you can flip the image, you can give it a square crop, you can give it a 16:9 crop. Again, it's all up to you, it's personal preference, it's all about experimenting. These would make a really nice set of canvases. So if you like this style, it's really easy to do. You don't need to go and take new images, you can just use images that you already have. So I hope you enjoyed that, and I'll hand you back to me. Okay, well I hope you enjoyed that. I hope you learned something from it. Completely different. It probably won't be everyone's taste, but hopefully you've learned something, especially other features within Lightroom. Whether we call it creative photography or not, who knows, it's a bit creative anyway, that's for sure. I hope you liked the video. If you do, please give it a thumbs up. If you haven't subscribed, please do, because you know it's free. And if you press the bell notification, that will let you know the next time I post a video. So here's to the next video, and thank you for watching.